Greetings, Hoodoo family. Welcome. I hope that this video finds you doing well and in great spirits. It's a Friday night and I decided what better way to spend this time than to visit with my fellow Hoodoo family. I told y'all that I'm originally from Alabama, but currently I live in Maryland, right outside of DC. So I moved to this area many years ago looking for better job opportunities. My hometown used to have a lot of sewing plants, but when these moved to China and other countries, it left thousands of us unemployed. And to this day, that town has still not recovered from that economic hit. It's just been downhill ever since then. And many of you probably live in towns that have been through this, economic downturn. But God has blessed me and my children with a new start, a new home, new life here in the DC area. All of my kids are grown, gone about their lives. So I'm enjoying this time with you, my Hoodoo family. Sometimes I sit here in my recliner at night and my mind kind of drifts off to years gone by, the old days of my elders, some things that I've seen myself and other things that they told me. So today I want to tell you about one of my aunts, my mother's sister. She was a very beautiful lady. I was a very small child, so don't really remember a lot about her, but I've listened to others describe her and talk about her, and I've seen pictures of her myself, and she was really a beautiful woman. She had very long hair to her back, straight, kind of jet black hair. She had a slight build, and in the small community where we lived, the men took notice of her. I believe that at some point during my aunt's childhood, something happened to her. She might have been molested or something like that, but she started to drink heavily at a very young age. When she was about 16 years old, she married this old man, and he was probably, well, he wasn't that old. He was probably in his 40s, but he was an old man to her. And after she married this man, her drinking became worse. And she would be sloppy drunk, and, men tried to take advantage of her while she was drunk. She had a son, but he was by another man, not her husband. But to make a long story short, one day her son, who was about 10 years old, came home from school and he asked where his mother was. And the husband told him, go on outside and play, because his mother was in the bedroom trying to sleep. So, the son, he could see her lying on the bed in the bedroom. So he didn't think nothing of it, and he went on outside to play. Well, later in the evening, when he came back in the house, he noticed his mother was still laying on the bed in the exact same position. She hadn't moved, and he kind of felt that something was wrong. The next morning, she wasn't in the room or the house or anywhere on the property at all. Now this was several weeks later. My father and some others were fishing down on the lake by our house, and they found a body floating in the water. So they called the police, and I remember a fire truck and ambulance and lots of sheriff's cars, being in the front of our house. So they pulled my aunt's body out of the water. Her body had bloated so big, really bad, from all of the water. They could hardly recognize her. That was the first time that I felt the power of death around me in that whole area. Somebody had killed my aunt and threw her body in the lake. And many people in the community, they knew who did it, but they wouldn't talk. So the sheriff said he would leave the case open, that it might take 20 years, but someday somebody will talk. And I recall hearing my brothers and sisters talking about how during her funeral, they had to keep the casket closed because her body had deteriorated so bad. And there were actually flies flying around, in the church because of the state of her body. So I told you in some of my videos that I have several elders who practiced hoodoo in my family. Well, somebody put a root on the alleged killer. And all of this was hush hush in that community. You know, all of this was supposed to be secrecy. So I grew up with the alleged killer's children, played with them. I was none the wiser. I didn't know any of this. But this man, as he got older, he just drank like a fish, just drank himself to oblivion. And his children turned out to be pretty bad. They were criminals. Some of them were in very bad circumstances involving abuse and drugs. But there was a root placed on his whole lineage. And it was so bad that one day this alleged killer visited my grandmother, broke down on his knees, cried like a baby, and confessed and profusely apologizing. And after that, he would often come to my grandmother's house, bringing her things he had grew in his garden, just very sorrowful for what he did. And my grandmother, oddly enough, she never did call the police or anything. And I never found out why, but I would like to think that she knew that justice had been served on him in a way that the courts couldn't do. And as far as my aunt's husband, you know, I'd heard the hushed whisperings of the elders that he was in on it. He knew about it. And he had owned a lot of land. And as he got older, his lawyers tricked him out of all of it but the little shack, the homestead that he was living in. Later on, after he passed away, some of his relatives tried to move into that house, but ended up having to move out because the place was cursed. Nothing good came from that spot. No one could live there. Today, the house is caved in. It's just a pile of rubble, a pile of wood. Nature took over the whole place, and weeds are just growing, trees growing taller than me. So my whole point with this is hoodoo justice combined with the passing of time did what no court system could do. And to be honest with you, I think about it, if something happened to my children or my grandchildren, I probably would raise Cain. I probably would seek hoodoo justice myself. Now, is everything that comes out of hoodoo always this bad? Absolutely not. Hoodoo can help clear the path and manifest blessings too. Just recently, my daughter did an ancestor ritual asking for help with employment. And in less than 2 days, she got a job. Hoodoo is what you make it. Just learn how to use it wisely. So I hope you enjoyed today's visit. Until the next video, have an abundant and prosperous hoodoo journey.